I think I saw one person still coming in, but another car just arriving. We need everyone we can gather up today. Okay. I think he just went back to get his mask. No, we're doing the normal one.
We just like to confuse you.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
That's fine.
I'm so confused, you might as well be.
At least we have a quorum, as they say elsewhere. All right. Oh. All right. Still someone walking in slowly. I will wait for her if that's okay.
Yes. And we should get Ann in. Good to have someone still there is greeting. Oh, that's our new Pat.
Yes.
Okay, I think you can start.
Well, I think she'd like to hear the music. Sorry.
Wow. Thank you, Jackie. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Stuart, Florida. Today is June 12th, 2022. I'm Janet Grote, and I'll be your worship associate today. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all genders, ethnicities, ages, and backgrounds. It's wonderful to see our vaccinated members in the sanctuary. We're on YouTube also. To be put on our mail list or to find out more information about us, go to our website, tcuuc.org. Note the email link to request our online newsletter. Please remember now, got your cell phone silenced? Hope mine is. Visitors, if you are comfortable, please step up to the microphone and introduce yourself. Uh-huh. Good morning.
Hi, my name is April Duffy. I'm Carolyn's daughter.
I kind of thought so. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've got some announcements. First of all, the board meeting, which should have been on Tuesday, is canceled due to illnesses and vacations. Join us the first and third Tuesdays at Stewart Memorial Veterans Park downtown for our noon brown bag lunch. That's never canceled. We are there, rain or shine. Fridays at 11, we have a weekly current event discussion with Reverend Bob via Zoom. And our book club at 11 is on Wednesdays, also via Zoom. We are reading My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. See the Friday newsletter to get that link. To get in the current events discussion, do contact Reverend Bob or just the office. Debbie is in the office Tuesday through Friday. Want to thank those who helped with the service today, Jackie Robbins for the music. Our greeters, Beth and Ronnie, and I don't know who else was there, but I appreciate y'all stepped in because we do have a few new people. Karina Poloni is, of course, here, is our putting on our beautiful presentation today. And our tech wizard, Chris, he's still working along with us to keep us going here. In the kitchen, we appreciate Jackie Buckley, who's relatively new there in the back, but she's stepped in along with Regina Wood and Judy Siloni. We have 3 Judys. Judy. We got a couple Janets too. Let's see. Reverend Carole Yorke will be in our pulpit today. Carole has served several UU churches in Florida since 1998, including right here in this church. She is a member of the UU Fellowship of Vero Beach, where she preaches occasionally, and she has led some bereavement groups. She lives in Port St. Lucie with her 2 Pomeranians. We're going to light the candle now. And hopefully, because I had a little mishap with the chalice oil, we're not going to start the whole place on fire. Oh, yeah, good idea. Well, the furniture got polished a little bit. Flame of fire, spark of the universe, which warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom, we strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. My opening words from many different sources. Abortion was legal under common law in the United States leading up to the 19th century. Early laws only prohibited the use of toxic substances to cause miscarriages after quickening, or when a woman felt her child move, usually 4 or 5 months into pregnancy. This was the moral point when people understood there was a life. In the late 1850s, the newly established American Medical Association began calling for the criminalization of abortion, partially in an effort to eliminate competitors such as midwives. The leader of the AMA campaign against abortion played into people's alarm regarding the country's growing population of immigrants. They feared declining birth rates among white American Protestant women. They had a fear of Catholics. He asked, would the western frontier be filled by our own children or by those of aliens? This is a question that our own women must answer. Upon their loins depends the future destiny of this nation. It's interesting to note that the religious press did not comment on abortion from the beginning of the 19th century through the Civil War. Anti-abortion physicians were bitterly disappointed with religious leaders for not speaking out on their behalf. So, what do you think? Do we speak out? UUA's Right to Choose resolution of 1987 is as follows. We reaffirm the right to choose contraception and abortion as a legitimate expression of our constitutional rights. The first and second principles of UUs are the most relevant to reproductive choice. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Now we're going to do our first hymn, which happens to be number 1 in the hymnal. May nothing evil cross this door. Oh, you can stand if you'd like. Now it's time for our affirmation. As always, we'll recite the first verse and sing the second through our Mass. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. as we have some heavy subjects in our words today and in the world out there, let's have a bit of cheer from our very own snowbird, Bob Mesnick. Stand up. Here's a video with Bob and Natasha Steinmeier from Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Wow. Thank you, Bob, and thank Natasha for us, too. We're now going to do our joys and sorrows. Please step up to the microphone and tell us your name first, and move a stone in our symbolic river of life to mark each joy and sorrow. Think of Bob. He's always saying, keep it personal and brief. Do we have anyone?
Hi, that's a hard act to follow. So, I'm Beth Arnold Messick, and from the Unitarian Universalist Church in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And for the last 3 years, we've had a condo down here, which, universe willing, we're actually selling now. And I just wanted to thank everybody. Whenever we showed up here, you were so warm and welcoming and friendly and loving, and we are going to miss you guys. Thank you.
Oh, Beth and Bob, please come back. Yes. Is there anyone else? There's so many sorrows out there right now. So Ronnie's going to move a stone for all those sorrows in the world. Yeah. And she's going to, yeah. And then she's going to move one for those of us who haven't spoken today, but nonetheless have deep sorrows and concerns. Now, here's Reverend Carole Yorke to do our first reading, and then a silent meditation.
The history is complex. The politics are intense. Fear and anger are overwhelming and the future is unclear. But glimpses of a hopeful vision will not be bombed into oblivion by anyone. In prayer, we call to mind the peacemakers, neighbors of differing faiths, with different histories, with different politics, with different emotions, who find room for each other in their hearts, in their dreams, and in their lives. Those who hold firmly to a vision of peace and justice anywhere in the world. Today, especially in Ukraine and throughout the United States, with the violence that doesn't seem to quit. Spirit of life and love, be present with all who are suffering terribly from violence. Lift up the hearts of those who fear. Inspire courage among the peacemakers. Be present with political leaders, ensuring a retreat from violence and a procession towards the peace table. Guide the hands of all those who are caring for the injured, the hungry, the grieving, and open our own hearts to compassion. Remind us of our complicity and responsibility, and lead us towards generous engagement, and move us always toward a vision of peace. Amen. We will now sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. Hum one time through and then sing. You may remain seated or stand if you desire.
Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to many of us. A community of memory and hope. We're going to start the music, and then Ronnie's going to pass the plate around. graciously accept the offering and thank Jackie once again for the beautiful music. Now is a time for our sermon, and here is Reverend Carole Yorke.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm going to begin with just two very short paragraphs from a speech that Audre Lorde gave in June of 1981. If you're interested in reading the entire speech, which I didn't want to read to you because it's 30 pages long. But if you want it, all you have to do is Google Audre Lorde, and you would find this speech. It's the keynote presentation at the National Women's Studies Association conference, as I said, in 1981. Racism, the belief in the inherent superiority of one race over all others, and thereby the right to dominance, manifest and implied. Women respond to racism. My response to racism, she says, is anger. I have lived with that anger, ignoring it, feeding upon it, learning to use it before it laid my visions to waste for most of my life. Once I did it in silence, afraid of the weight. My fear of anger taught me nothing. Your fear of that anger will teach you nothing also. Women responding to racism means women responding to anger. Anger of exclusion, of unquestioned privilege, of racial distortions, of silence, ill use, stereotyping, defensiveness, misnaming, betrayal, and co-optation. I don't know about you, but I'm really angry right now. In fact, so angry that I can hardly stand here at this pulpit and pretend that this is just another Sunday where I get to go guest preach. Ever since the draft from the Supreme Court was leaked with the court's plan to overturn Roe v. Wade, my adrenaline levels have been through the roof. Except, of course, when they crash and I'm wiped out. Because this draft opinion doesn't just affect abortion rights as if that weren't bad enough by itself. It could also overturn everything having to do with the right to privacy. Abortion, interracial marriage, same-sex marriage, consensual sex in your own home, contraception, parents educating their children, the teaching and learning of languages other than English. Its potential scope is vast, and it has already begun in many states. And just listen to what this man, who pretends to be the governor of all people in Florida, has to say. He has signed so many pieces of legislation, such as preventing, now I'm going to lose this. I can't remember the number of weeks for abortions, after which abortions cannot be had. The word gay may not be used in elementary schools, and on and on. I'll get back to that in a minute. According to Reuters, Justice Alito, who wrote the majority opinion, reasoned in the draft that substantive due process rights must be deeply rooted in the U.S. history and tradition and essential to the nation's scheme of ordered liberty. Abortion, he said, is not, and rejected arguments that it is essential for privacy and bodily autonomy reasons. You know what is deeply rooted in U.S. history and tradition: slavery, racism, misogyny, queer bashing, xenophobia, poverty. I don't know why so many judges are obsessed with the framers' intent when these were the same folks who decided that slaves constituted 3/5 of a human being. Can we stop, please, using the framers as an excuse to entrench modern-day bigotry and hatred? This decision by the Supreme Court, if it remains substantively the same when it is officially released, as it will be coming up very soon, will affect so many people I know and care about. As a lesbian and a same-sex marriage performing minister, I literally have some skin in this fight on a few fronts. This isn't theoretical to me. It's deeply personal. I hope that even if you share none of those identities or similarities, you are taking it personally as well. With this possible ruling from the Supreme Court, there won't be any protections for the most vulnerable among us. Make no mistake, the rich and powerful, including those who make political hay by calling for the end of Roe v. Wade, will always find a way to procure an abortion for themselves, their spouses, their offspring, or their illicit lovers when a pregnancy is unwanted. It's the poor and already marginalized who will suffer the most. In today's reading from Audre Lorde's The Uses of Anger, she drops this truth bomb. Every woman has a well-stocked arsenal of anger, potentially useful against those oppressions, personal and institutional, which brought that anger into being. Focused with precision, it can become a powerful source of energy serving progress and change. And when I speak of change, she said, I do not mean a simple switch of positions or temporary lessening of tensions, nor the ability to smile or feel good. I'm speaking of a basic and radical alteration in those assumptions underlining our lives. The first and strongest of the emotions that began to poke through the silence in the 70s was anger. And let's just say that Lorde's choice of the word arsenal was quite apt. Anger recognizes and cries out against injustice. All that raw energy was overwhelming at first, but I learned and continued to learn what to do with my anger so that it becomes an impetus for change rather than something that consumes me. I'm almost having a hard time preaching from this pulpit today because the authority to speak as a person who supports abortion rights doesn't belong to me alone. It's also for each one of you who supports the right to bodily autonomy and the right to health care. which you use affirm in pretty much all of our 8 principles. Already we're seeing attacks, and you've read this, you've seen this, on the right of trans people and what they do with their bodies. Just recently, a federal judge decided whether a law could go into effect in Alabama that would make it a felony for anyone under 19 to receive gender-affirming health care. So if a trans youth has loving, supportive parents who find a caring doctor who prescribes puberty blockers for that child, both the parents and the doctor could be jailed up to 10 years. All this, despite research that shows that suicidal tendencies go down significantly in young people by 43% when youth have access to gender-affirming care. And that means, above all else, a loving, supportive person in their lives, and which includes things like as basic as respecting the youth's choice of pronouns. In both Alabama and Texas, and soon to come here in Florida, scientific experts have written that the governors and governments in those states have omitted some evidence as they made legislation go through the process, and outright lied about other evidence considering gender-affirming issues. Are we surprised? Not in this age of big lies. We will undoubtedly see more of this. You know, no one can force me to give blood if I don't want to, even if all it costs me is an hour of my time. And if I don't consent, I don't have to donate bone marrow, even if I'm someone's only chance of survival. And if I haven't agreed while I'm alive to be an organ donor after my death, you cannot harvest any of my organs, even though they could potentially save multiple lives. Without the protections of Roe v. Wade, though, people with uteruses could be forced to go through the potentially life-threatening experiences of being pregnant and giving birth. In other words, we'd have fewer rights than corpses. I am not the first to point that out, but doesn't make it any less sobering. There's something seriously wrong when someone would have more control over their body when they're dead than when they're alive. Well, I'm alive right now, and yet another reason I'm not totally comfortable preaching today is that I'm restless. Throughout my time writing this sermon, I kept having to get up and walk around. I felt like one of those tigers in a zoo that's stuck in a too small enclosure. As the animal keeps pacing back and forth, giving the humans serious side eye while going a little crazy. But that tiger isn't wrong to feel trapped and restless. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. put it in the language of his day, there are some things in our nation and the world to which I am proud to be maladjusted and wish all men of good will would be maladjusted until the good society is realized. It may well be that our whole world is in need of the formation of a new organization, the International Association for the Advancement of Creative Maladjustment. Through such maladjustment, he said, we will be able to emerge from the bleak and desolate midnight of man's inhumanity to man into the bright and glittering daybreak of freedom and justice. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. There's a song like that. I'm not going to sing it, though. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. I wish we didn't have to keep pacing back and forth, keeping vigil at the threshold. Roe v. Wade was decided in 1973, yet here we are. I remember traveling to Washington, D.C. for an abortion rights rally in 1989 that drew 600,000 people. Yet here we are. During their confirmation hearings, the conservative justices supporting this leaked ruling said that Roe v. Wade was an important precedent and even the settled law of the land. Yet here we are. I can't stand still because as a society we're moving backwards. In her poem, Power, Adrienne Rich writes, I was recently reading about Marie Curie. She must have known she suffered from radiation sickness, her body bombarded for years by the elements she had purified. It seems she denied to the end the source of the cataracts on her eyes, the cracked and suppurating skin of her finger ends till she could no longer hold a test tube or a pencil. She died a famous woman, denying her wounds. Denying her wounds came from the same source as her power. There's a corollary to this, though. While our wounds can come from our power can also come from our wounds. Our vulnerability becomes a source of strength. Our anger fuels our search for justice. Our stories are the living flesh that our truths wear. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in the world, and I know that not everyone can be out in the streets protesting, and that's fine. There are plenty of other ways to contribute to the basic and radical alteration that Audre Lorde spoke of. Some of us are very old hands at calling legislators, donating to funds helping people access abortion rights right now. Put up a sign in your window. Offer rides or bail money to those engaged in civil disobedience. Talk to your friends and family about why this is important to you, including the implications beyond abortion. And if people ask you why you're angry, ask them why they aren't. Because America is in denial, big time. Because my anger is rooted in love. It's rooted in my care for others and respect for their autonomy and well-being. As Bell Hooks taught us, and I kept having to go back to the feminists from the 70s and 80s and 60s, the transformative power of love is the foundation for all meaningful social change. This, of course, is what our faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith, teaches us. Recognizing people's inherent worth and dignity is the only way that society moves forward together. Justice, equity, compassion, and the right of conscience. Then our liberation must be collective. There's serious work to be done, and as people of faith, it's ours to do. This is why I personally want to see every single Unitarian Universalist congregation, especially here in Florida, but not only in Florida, become a sanctuary for trans people. Youth, tell your friends, we say gay here. If you have connections in the school system or libraries, invite gay and lesbian and transgender adults and youth to come to a loving and supportive religious home. Reach out. Help them. They need you. And the Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray, the president of the UUA, in her words, an ethic of love lives at the heart of our UU faith. It reflects the core question, how are we to live? It calls us to courage to continually grow and learn and adapt in ways that foster love and justice. It is not a weak or sentimental love. It burns like the fire at the center of our chalice. It's fierce in a way that compels us to demand justice in our world, but also fierce in how it calls us to courageous conversations, to radical practices of welcome, compassion, forgiveness, and belonging. May it be the energy and resilience we need to keep on loving, to keep on learning, to keep on showing up for each other and our neighbors in resistance to evil and in creating refuge from the trauma of oppression. Let us build with love a solid foundation for the work we do in our families, our faith communities, and the world. And let us do it joyfully. Amen. I don't know about you, but I'm out of breath. Now we will join with one another in song, hymn number 121, We'll Build the Land, verses 1 and 2.
Someone was gifting an extra chorus there.
For our closing words today, friends, thank you for your witness to all that exists on the margins. Thank you for your commitment to hold yourselves and one another in great and steadfast love. Moving forward from this space, may we continue to nurture spiritual growth. May we continue to travel along the winding pathway to healing from whatever brokenness we individually and collectively hold, knowing that we do not journey this path alone. Go in peace, gentle people. Right out to the patio and coffee hour.
To confuse you all, the chairs are on the front porch rather than the back patio.